I need the cornbread dressing with some dirty rice, yams, some greens, some ham, you know what I'm saying? I guess on Thanksgiving I get a little turkey.
I think I've been playing pretty good on Thanksgiving too. That might be my type of game. I like when certain family members are in town. It gives you something to look for, especially some of my uncles and stuff. One of my uncles is extremely good luck, so I was like, man, what you doing for Thanksgiving? Like, he's like, I don't know. I said, why don't you come out? He's like, can't afford it. I said, don't worry about it. I sent them flights over. I said, you'll be there.
And it's a privilege to be able to play on Thanksgiving Day. You know, it's a privilege for our guys. And everybody's watching, all your family, all your friends. And this is the type of game, man, you come out of and you got somebody you went to school with in second grade who's texting you, and you forgot until he texted you, and you're like, oh my God, you know, and family member, everything. And so it's kind of cool like that.
What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. That was CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Dan Campbell talking about Thanksgiving, and we got plenty more of that with Thanksgiving spreads and totals.
So weird, because I have to be honest with you, like, the people, the randoms from second grade that might reach out to me, they don't have my phone number. Like, I didn't have a cell in second grade where I was just like, hey, Timmy, here's my number, text me in 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. What do you mean people who knew you in second grade, Dan Campbell, suddenly have Dan Campbell's cell phone?
I'm not sure Dan Campbell can win Coach of the Year after that. That's a real big mishap. I'm not sure what he's talking about there.
Just a weird.
Someone needs to probe on that.
It's a weird comment. I'm just saying. Like, you know, I understand people coming out of the woodwork. That happens to me all the time, but it's older than second grade.
And it's probably on Facebook. That's where the olds reside.
That's 100%. I got a lot of the old high school
messages.
Oh, remember when, you know, that kind of stuff, and you know, whatever. Like, right.
Facebook is absolutely the nursing home of the internet. There's no denying that.
It is, and I will say this: there's the one ego thing where it's just like I've definitely over the years like gotten, you know, some notes from like girls that like I liked in high school or whatever. That it is like, oh, you know, like,
hey,
and, you know, now that I've seen you on TV, and like, oh, you know, we always should have. And I'm like, no, like you had no interest in me in high school. Now you've seen me in high school, you know. Anyway, so
how the turntables.
What are you gonna how the tables turn? By the way, you at the very top of that promo, you said release the hounds.
Yeah,
right.
I read the script, but it's not just hounds at the dog show.
Right.
I have a little bit of a gripe with that promo.
Okay, what do you got?
It's just there's not all hounds.
Not all hounds.
There's plenty of breeds.
I'm just
all
saying
dogs are hounds.
That might be something that you could say to your wife tomorrow night after the kids go to bed.
Just waiting for the punch.
Happy Thanksgiving. Release the hound.
Release the hound, honey. Release the hound.
I say that anyway. Yeah,
there you go.
She might go to a hotel with the kids after that.
I don't know what your love language is. I'm trying to help you out here.
Yeah, no, we're very Baskerville. Release the hounds-ish. Yeah, we love it. Okay.
Thanksgiving games. How about that? All right, let's get into Packers at Lions, a staple. The Lions playing on Thanksgiving. They're favored by 7.5. I don't remember a game in my lifetime on Thanksgiving where the Lions have been this good. It's awesome. Over/under is at 47.5. The top players, of course, in Barry's ranks as we look into this. Notable loves, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs comes in as RB5. David Montgomery, as promised, still a top 20 running back. Jordan Love is QB 15 as well. Barry, let's start there with those two running back loves. Gibbs and David Montgomery, both top 20 plays easily.
I love Gibbs, and I love the over-unders receiving prop as well. I have him as a top 5 play. Packers a top 5 worst run defense in the NFL so far this year. Teams that face Green Bay average the 6th most running back carries per game, and we've seen that both of these guys can get enough touches in this offense to be very productive. Gibbs averaging over 15 touches a game since Monty returned, including 6 goal-to-go carries for Jahmyr Gibbs. And in his 5 full games that he's played so far this year, David Montgomery averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. So I think both guys are must-plays on Thanksgiving against the Green Bay Packers.
I think Detroit's offensive line is just so good as well that they're kind of opponent agnostic. I mean, they went up against an elite Chicago Bears run defense that have been the best in football, and they still ran for over 5 yards per carry. Now they get a much more favorable matchup against Green Bay.
I think both guys are obviously must-starts. Everyone that has them is going to start them, but I will just say again, I really like Gibbs over on the receiving props, and I think Montgomery anytime touchdown is pretty good bet.
Jay, looking at Jordan Love, Detroit's defense has really struggled against quarterbacks lately, and Jordan Love is throwing the ball a lot. Is he a viable streamer on Thanksgiving?
I think so. There's probably some better options out there for you just because there's no bye week this week, so you've got all the quarterbacks to choose from. But you can certainly do worse than Jordan Love coming off his first 300-plus passing yard performance of the season against the Chargers. Now he gets another leaky defense in Detroit. He is missing some of his weapons. He won't have Aaron Jones as a dump-off option in the passing game. Luke Musgrave is also going to miss. He's hurt too.
Yep.
But I think with just the way that Love is playing, the past 3 weeks in particular, feels like he has really turned the corner. So I suspect that he will have some big plays against Detroit.
Lions have given up at least 21 fantasy points to 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks they've faced. You mentioned I think their run game's going to struggle. We'll talk about that in a second. Love's had at least 40 passing attempts in 3 of the past 4 games. And then you think about Green Bay being on the road as more than a touchdown underdog here. I have Jordan Love as a QB 15 this week, and I think he's a very viable QB 2 if you're sitting there trying to piece it together without Joe Burrow this week for the first time, or if you have a quarterback in a bad matchup.
There'd be a lot of people, I suspect, who are making a choice between like Jordan Love and Geno Smith. Even if Geno Smith goes, and that's declared before the game starts, I'd rather have Jordan Love.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm starting Jordan Love in my Superflex Keeper League because I lost Joe Burrow, so it's going to be Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love for me this year.
The fellas.
I feel like there's a thought when Aaron Jones is out that, A.J. Dillon is this lock-it-in starting running back right now, Matthew, and you have him as RB31. Bottom line is, when these opportunities have come up for A.J. Dillon, he really hasn't produced.
He hasn't at all, Connor. I mean, this is unbelievable. Out of the 60 qualified running backs in fantasy points per touch, A.J. Dillon is 56th.
That's not good.
That's not good. Look, a lot of people say you're smart, Jay, and I'm glad you were able to pick that up immediately as well. He's had 5 games with 15 or more touches. He's averaging 9.6 fantasy points per game. In games in which he's getting a big workload, 15 or more touches, he's averaging single-digit fantasy points as well, and it's not a good matchup against the Lions as no running back has had more than 67 rushing yards in a game against the Lions. They're top 5 in terms of rushing yards per game and yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs. He's been bad. Like, if you have to start him, I guess you're hoping he falls into the end zone. But again, we think this is a Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, maybe Christian Watson gets deep for one as well. But A.J. Dillon just outside my top 30 this week.
All right, let's move over to Commanders-Cowboys. The Cowboys favored by a whopping 11 points against your Commanders here, Barry.
It's up to 12.5.
Oh, it's flying.
By the way, everyone is just like
America knows.
America knows. America's seen it. Like when you get housed by Tommy DeVito,
at home.
and now you've got to go on the road to face a red hot Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. This could get ugly quick.
And the over-under as well has been on the rise. That's at 49 right now. So obviously points expected in this Thanksgiving game. Dak comes in as QB2. So Barry, I think it's pretty safe to say you're expecting this passing offense to stay hot.
Dak's my number 2 quarterback in fantasy this week. Commanders have allowed the most touchdown passes in the league this year. Dak's been absolutely fantastic. And one of the guys that are helping him out, my guy 8, CeeDee Lamb, is my number 1 wide receiver in fantasy this week as well. Since week 6, he's been the best wide receiver in fantasy. He's just been absolutely fantastic. That should continue against my Commanders. And how about Jake Ferguson as a top 10 play this week? He's scored in 3 of the past 4. Dak Prescott's got a good shot at 3 touchdowns in this one as well. The only concern here is there a defensive score? Does Micah Parsons strip Sam Howell and run one in? You can certainly see that. But it's Thanksgiving. It's Cowboys, Commanders. They don't like each other. I wouldn't be surprised if Jarrah wants to run up the score.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb as well. Even though he appeared on the injury report, he's got little niggles. He's going to play anyway. He should be fine. He's set at 89.5 receiving yards on DraftKings. For context, that's 13 yards higher than Tyreek Hill.
Right.
This week, we don't have the full slate of props yet, but I would imagine that's going to be the highest on the board, so he justifies being wide receiver 1.
Commanders also have allowed 100 rushing yards to running backs in 2 of the past 3 games. They're allowing over 5 yards per carry over the last 3 weeks as well. I have Tony Pollard as a top 10 play. Again, I think they'll get in close, and I think they'll score.
Yep.
I do have a weird thing for you, though. Tell me if you agree with this, Jay.
Yeah.
Here's what I would do. We're seeing the line continues to go. It's 12.5. I wouldn't be surprised if it closes at 13, 13.5.
Yeah.
People continue. I think the Commanders cover.
Yeah,
I think
I do
they
too.
backdoor cover in this one as well. Dallas, if you go back and look at the betting history, Dallas never covers on Thanksgiving.
Well,
it's the weirdest thing in the world.
I think we might have had a big position on Dallas against the Giants last Thanksgiving, minus 8.5, and then Daniel Jones scored with 5 seconds left to get the backdoor cover. So, look, Sam Howell was designed in a lab for backdoor covers. He's great. He's fantastic against the prevent defense.
Throw 100 times.
Yeah, just when he doesn't have to deal with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence coming through his head, I'm sure it'd be great.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think it is not a close game at all. I think they kill them. But I do think in the fourth quarter when Cooper Rush is in there, I think the Commanders backdoor cover, and I would wait to bet this because I think the line is going to continue to rise up until kickoff.
So that kind of leads to the next question from this game from a fantasy perspective, Jay. Do you bench Sam Howell this week? He's been great in fantasy all year. For Matthew, he comes in as QB 13, so he's right on the outside kind of looking in right there. Or do you believe in the garbage time?
But that's the lowest I've had him in a long, long time because
he's been in the top 8
before. He's
consistently.
He's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback all year, basically.
I mean, the guy's flirting. I'm not sure if he still leads the league in passing yards. He's right there at the top of the list, and he will, I think, being a 12.5-point dog, I do think that he will be throwing in the second half, and he will be throwing against what should be a pretty soft defense at that time if the Cowboys are up big. I do worry for him just getting through this game, honestly, with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence coming at him, so that is a little bit of a concern. But I think that with what they've done with just giving him more protection, going more 2 wide receiver where it's just McLaurin and Dotson, suspect that he will be viable as a starter, but it is a little bit concerning, the matchup.
You see that screen right there that shows you how the fewest passing yards allowed this season. Only the Browns have allowed fewer per game than the Dallas Cowboys. They lead the NFL in pressure rate, led by Lawrence and Parsons, of course. And when Howell has been pressured this year, he has a league-high 9 interceptions. He is bottom 12 in terms of passer rating when pressured. I think he will be under pressure. I think if you feel better if your league doesn't count interceptions because this could get ugly. And I'm with you. We may see Jacoby Brissett, but so I think it just depends on what you have because I do think he'll be running for his life. He is mobile. He did earn the job this year based on what he did against Dallas last year in the last game of the season. So I'm a QB 13. He's high in QB 2, very low in QB 1. He made my hate list because, again, this is the lowest I've seen him. This is the lowest I've had him all year.
Yeah, and credit to Sam Howell as well. He's going to set the record for all-time sacks in a season. He's never been injured. So he's clearly pretty tough, and his body's pretty resilient.
Our final Thanksgiving game, the Niners are favored by 7 points going to Seattle. The over-under is set at 44 in this one. We know Geno Smith is banged up in this game right now, Matthew. He comes in as QB 19 for you. Clearly, there's some significant concern.
Right. I mean, so not 100% healthy. And the Seahawks implied team total this week, 18 points. Well, when the Seahawks score less than 28 points, Geno's averaging just 10 fantasy points per game as well. Niners allow only 5.7 yards per pass attempt since their bye week. They've cleaned up their defense quite a bit. Geno comes in at QB 19 for me. Like, I'd rather Jordan Love than Geno, as you were saying. Like, I think there's real concerns about Geno Smith if he even plays in this one.
How about Zach Charbonnet, Jay? We get to see Charbonnet really get to – the snap count's been going up, but now Kenneth Walker is hurt, so a huge workload on tap potentially. For Charbonnet in a tough matchup. Yeah,
it is a tough matchup. You would expect, though, that he will get some passing game work, which will mitigate the fact that, they're likely going to be down. They're going up against a really good run defense in San Francisco. But I expect he's going to have to rely on screens. And I'm with you with Geno. I mean, this is just a terrible matchup. I mean, the Niners are a bad matchup for everyone, but the weakness of Seattle is their offensive line. I think back to their matchups last year, particularly the Week 15 game in primetime where Geno was just under siege from Nick Bosa. Now he's got to deal with Chase Young as well. Eric Armstead, who had 12 pressures last week against the Bucs. It's Eric Armstead. He's the third guy on the line. He had 12 pressures. It's insane. So I think Geno's in big trouble if he even plays. And he says it's up to coach whether he plays.
Exactly. So, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to run the ball quite a bit and they're going to dump it off, but it's only going to be Zach Charbonnet. We're not expecting Ken Walker to play in this game, and so Charbonnet, who has 5 or more targets in consecutive games, that was with Ken Walker out there, should be in for a heavy workload. I don't know how much success he'll have on the ground, but I do think as part of the passing game and just in terms of pure volume, as the Seahawks averaged basically 25 running back touches per game, volume should get Charbonnet there as well. He comes in at running back 24 for me, so it's a high-end flex. I will say I kind of like Zach Charbonnet anytime touchdown as a bet. They run when they get in close quite a bit, and again, with Geno less than 100%, you could see Charbonnet getting into the end zone. Other side of the ball, very quickly, look, you're starting all your obvious guys. You're starting McCaffrey. You're starting Kittle. You're starting Brandon Ayuk. I just want to mention 2 quick things. I have Brock Purdy at QB7. Again, probably the highest I've had him all season as well. His last 4 games, he's averaging 316 passing yards per game. Oh. He's just been absolutely on fire since Deebo came back. And speaking of Deebo, this is kind of a gut call because he hasn't been great. He hasn't been Deebo-like with all the other guys out there crushing, but for whatever reason, he just always seems to kill Seattle, including the playoffs. In his last 3 games against the Seahawks, he's averaging 140 yards from scrimmage. I feel like they need to get Deebo going. Friend of the podcast, Deebo Samuel as well. So again, a little bit of a gut call here, but I'm at wide receiver 19 because the target share hasn't been there, but I feel like this is a game where they try to get Deebo going. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.